Hey everybody, as you can see I have on my dad's Army regalia. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I was able to procure my dad's Purple Heart and what happened to his World War II artifacts. So it all started back in October when I was doing a little bit of research on my mother's military service, and I found a video on Facebook from a company called Heritage Arsenal in Colorado Springs, and they had done a piece on a WAC that was stationed with my mother, and I was very interested in learning more, so I reached out to them. I got a message back from Bill Lynn. He is the vice president of the company, and he's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army, also a paratrooper. And he was full of all kinds of information. It was very helpful to get the story of my mother. And then I invited him to watch the video of my dad that I had made called The Green Box. So then I get a message back from Bill, and he's very interested in the parachute jump pants that I showed in the film. He wanted to know if I would donate them to his museum in Colorado Springs. So I pondered it a while, and I thought, you know what? Why not? These pants are sitting in a box. They've been in this box for 80 years, and I think it's time for them to come out of the box and be shown to the public. So then Bill asked to see my dad's World War II discharge papers, and once he saw them, he noticed that my dad was wounded in action, and there was no mention of a Purple Heart listed under the medals and decorations section of the form. And he asked me if my dad ever got a Purple Heart. And I said, I didn't think so. I never saw one. And so I asked my dad, and he told me, nope, never got one, never pursued it, didn't think I deserved it. And I thought, well, dude, guess what? You're getting a Purple Heart on my watch. So with Bill's expertise and his connections with the 82nd Airborne Division, we were able to gather the paperwork. I also got some help from historians on Facebook that have written books about my dad's unit. One in particular was Tyler Fox. He was the guy that ended up giving me a really critical piece of paperwork that he had in his collection. I got what's called a morning report with my dad's name on it, and it was proof in the pudding that my dad was owed a Purple Heart. So we were able to get this expedited because of Bill and Heritage Arsenal. It got flown up the chain of command at the 82nd Airborne Division, and the next thing I know, a general is literally hand-walking my dad's Purple Heart paperwork into the Pentagon. And 2 weeks later, I get a letter from a lieutenant colonel in the Army, the Awards and Decorations branch, saying my dad's not only getting his Purple Heart, but he's also getting another Bronze Star. So the 82nd Airborne really stepped up. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Burns is the commander of the communications office at Fort Bragg, and he got national news media involved. He flew out for the event and made sure that the commander of the 82nd Airborne, Major General Christopher Donahue, was live with my dad to present the Purple Heart. Bill Lynn from Heritage Arsenal flew out and became the Master of Ceremonies. He put together the program. I mean, it was just amazing, everybody that stepped up, and so I just want to give you guys a big round of applause and a big thank you. So then I made the decision, as well as the family, to donate the rest of my dad's military World War II artifacts. They didn't get everything, but they got a good chunk of the weaponry and things that my dad had collected from World War II and brought home. We packed up our RV and we drove back to Colorado Springs to donate these things to Heritage Arsenal, and they could either use it in their museum or museums that they put together throughout the country. We are here at Heritage Arsenal in Colorado Springs. We're about ready to hand over my dad's World War II artifacts to Bill Lynn, who's the owner of the Heritage Arsenal here in Colorado Springs, and he's about to tell us all about his business, what he does to help families looking for history and information about their veteran family members, and all the things that he has here. So here we go. We're going to take a big tour, and then we're going to do the big handoff.
One was the 101st Airborne and one was the 1st Cavalry Division. So I said, well, hey, I can put up an exhibit that honors that unit. Tell me what era and kind of what themes you'd like. And he said, well, I want a World War II 101st, and I want a medical theme. If I can get a medical theme in here. Video that we did. This is Helen Glassford and her husband.
Yeah, we knew them in Washington.
Yeah, right. I mean, Rod had passed away, but Helen was a widow living in Tacoma, Washington. And I went over and sat with her and visited with her about her experience at Fort Benning, and she had these in her jewelry box. There's our wings. And what's great about those is they're actually on the same wings that she's wearing in both of those photographs. And the one on the right is her wedding photo in Phoenix City, Alabama. So she was married in the same place your parents were. Man. Yep. And so what I will always remark by that is they look like paratroopers. You know, these wax had all the insignia like an instructor.
And I want you to tell me exactly what's going on here.
What's going on here? Well, this is Heritage Arsenal. We are a military museum consultancy here that also helps veteran nonprofits and helps individual veterans and their families with projects. Some of those are merely going through what they have and telling them what they have, figuring out new stewards for things that they have, how to honor their family member, either through an assemblage of military artifacts that they can hang on their wall, or medals, or awards or decorations. Referring them to through research to more details about their loved one's service. But we also do high-end exhibits as well. So we have put big cases together. Probably the biggest one that we did was in the Colorado Springs airport. We had a local gentleman who actually was a survivor of the USS Arizona, was actually at his battle station during the Pearl Harbor attack. The city wanted to honor him. We were the exhibit leads for that 15-month project. It was over $100,000 exhibit, and it's being seen now by about 3 million people a year passing by that exhibit. At 18 years old, I enlisted into the Army, and 28 years later, I finally hung up the uniform. But really, that was the opportunity to revisit, why did I join the military in the first place? Well, it was really about the veterans. It was really about that history that drove me to want to be part of that. And this collection sort of followed me around. So I started this collection at 10 years old, and it followed me into the military. And actually, as I went from unit to unit, I would do exhibits about that unit's history and put them in the headquarters. So soldiers passing by in the hallway would stop, take a look at what I had put together. And then I would get just more and more items. You would either find them in far-flung places, garage sales or flea markets, but also, personally, veteran or their families say, look, we don't have a steward for these things. We like what you're doing. We want to invest in what you're doing. And so that's where you kind of see this. And what's interesting is my military career kind of mapped the things that I collect specifically, like, for this exhibit, are the units I served in, actually, but 50 years removed, 75 years removed. So it was really an honor for me to, stand on the shoulders of giants and really serve in the shadow of, what these guys had done. And it was deeply meaningful to me to say, hey, I'm in the 501st Parachute Infantry, or I'm in the 2nd Ranger Battalion. I mean, that's those are storied organizations, and be able to say that you served with them and carried on that legacy, very special opportunity, really. So the president of the company is Courtney.
Hi, Courtney Lynn. Well, I basically keep everything going, and I help with the exhibits, and it's true. Essentially, we were a military family taking care of military families. That was, over 20 years of our service. And essentially, we've just extended that to the veteran population. So we're still a military family, taking care of military families, but in different ways. So people aren't in combat anymore, but everybody's thinking about the legacy. What was that all about, and what did it mean? And so we're trying to bring meaning to that service. And so we do it in different ways, like he said. So sometimes we're building exhibits, sometimes we're just helping to, get the medals that people deserve. And and just kind of help fill in the gaps a little bit. And there's a certain I don't know reconciliation we see that happens when we honor the service, or help families honor the service of their loved ones.
Many years ago, my father gave me a green Army footlocker, and in this locker was a collection of things that he had accumulated over the years of his military career. But also in the box were things from World War II, his paratrooper jump pants, the Bible that he carried throughout the war, among other things like swords and bayonets, and a sword from a Nazi officer, also a bayonet from a Nazi officer, a bayonet or some sort of machete from Italy, just all kinds of things. And this was a part of his military career that I was not familiar with.
What's neat about it, it's got sometimes you see these in different colors, but this is the red jeweled eyes. What's neat is the blade is made by Eichhorn, who was a very famous sword maker and dagger maker, but the rest of the components put together is made in Aachen, this Scheben company, which is not unusual. They would buy the blades themselves, and then they would assemble the rest of it according to RZM. RZM is a code, almost like if you have a license to make something for the German government, you would have an RZM number. A Wehrmacht officer sword from World War II. This is interesting because this is very strange Well, this is a World War I German issue bayonet. Very woodwormed. It's like been hanging out in the barn for a little while. You could probably, I see a faint maker's mark on it. You could probably research for this. What I have not seen is this skinny blade like this. Normally these are in almost like a butcher knife. This skinny blade I'm going to have to do a little bit of research on. Army issue machete, dated 45. This would have had a cloth, like a scabbard or sheath with it. This is neat. This is the survival machete. So like a air crew or something like that would have this folding. It's made by Camillus, which is a pretty well-known U.S. company. It's still in existence. But it's a folding survival machete with this Bakelite. This is the early plastic, but from World War II. This Bakelite material. This is an Italian bayonet. I don't know a ton about it. It does have a maker mark, and it is serial numbered. But it's neat. It's a leather with brass fittings. This is also another bayonet as well. You can always tell bayonets because they have this a fixing deal here. This one is rusted shut, but it'd be a spring to be able to remove it from the rifle. That is French, dated 1893. This is a parade bayonet. You can tell it by the chrome. This is World War II German. Made by Sologen, another pretty well-known manufacturer. But this chrome, obviously you wouldn't have this in the field, in a combat scenario. This is a dress or parade configuration. And this is an example where the frog is actually here, and you can see it's actually patent leather. So it's bright. It's supposed to be showy because it's a parade configuration. But every one of these other bayonets would have had some kind of a frog like this that actually has the belt loop through it, so that it could be worn. This is an M1 bayonet. I see the U.S. Ordnance mark on it. UFH is the manufacturer. But this would have been a nice World War II M1 Garand bayonet. And this is this fiberglass type configuration. This would have been probably late, I would say 44 issue, 1944, but in really great shape. Some of these are sharpened and things like that, and that really affects the not only historic integrity but the value, and those are not. This is a bazooka round. Wow, things you don't see every day. But I think this is a 2.5 inch bazooka. So that 2.5 inch refers to this diameter that this thing would have been shot out of. The fins, everything here, goodness. And because it's green and not light blue, it's not a practice round, it's an actual round. But when that would have been used actually in action. Just judging from the lightness of it, I don't believe the warhead's in it or any of the explosive is in it to this point, but it's a really cool, that'd be really neat infantry exhibit piece. I also see this right here, of course, helping me out with the note here that your dad brought this back from Italy. This is, boy, check out like the waist size of somebody right there, right? Very, very tight. But what's really great about this is a dated 1942, so early one. It comes in this Luftwaffe blue-gray, pebbled steel. So it's an early war and really made of really nice quality. And I'd love to hear more about the story of where that was taken. Salerno, Anzio would have been interesting. It's a Luftwaffe, so it could have been a Luftwaffe paratroop. Hermann Goering Panzer Division was also in that on that battlefield too, and you could have had one of the tankers from Hermann Goering definitely would have worn that issue belt. So pretty interesting. Wow, this one is super old because it's the 1911 regulation that actually probably was printed. Oh, I see even a date, received October 2nd, 1917 in a Company K 340th Infantry. So this would have been printed in time for World War I. So yeah, corrected to April 15th, 1917. So that would have been what the infantry would have been issued in World War I. And it would have explained all the drills, aspects of leadership here, things on employment of weapons. Some of the early ones, going back about 10 years earlier than this, there's with your bayonet drills, little illustrations. They actually, the last 2 pages was your last will and testament, fill in the blank. They had taken that out by this point in military service. My goodness. So we have a stack here. Here's the Army Songbook, Drill and Ceremonies. So these were some just immediately post-Korea. This is the Second World War Army Songbook. So June 53, Drill and Ceremonies. Always a soldier's favorite. Here's your basic field manual. This would have been Second World War, 1941. Soldier's Guide. This would have been Korean War era. So FM21, that field manual, and then you'd have a number that you could look up or order if you wanted a certain one. Here's the Engineer Soldier's Handbook from 43. So this probably would have covered a lot of explosives and things, actually, that every infantryman would have wanted some basic knowledge of. And then as well, creating obstacles or minefields, which even you didn't have to be an engineer to be employed in that way. These are, oh, great. This is really neat, too. So here is a paratrooper, almost like an Army issue, sort of a recruiting brochure, dated 54. This is neat because this is what the staff would have been issued at the parachute school, and it's got the old World War II logo of the parachute course on it. So this is the Second World War I, but to the staff, which is actually harder because your father was an instructor, your standard student wouldn't have received this. So it's kind of neat. There's another recruiting brochure, and I know your dad had spent time as a recruiting detachment commander, and this would have been one that showed the different branches of service. Here's a physical fitness one from 65, always important. Another from Artillery and Missile School. More field manuals. Stars and Stripes edition, December 14th, 1955. He probably saved this for a reason, so there's an article.
He was in France, I think, during that time, and
Sure.
I think that's why he saved it. But I was telling Courtney, I said, I think my mother saved it because it had this article in here about,
Okay.
because it's circled. That's the only thing that was
yeah.
circled.
Women will probably add another 3 years to their lifespan by 1970, while males are adding only 18 months. Apparently this topic was important to her. Maybe they had a bet going or something.
It was just like a funny little weird book, but it was from the 40s, I think.
Mm-hmm. Don't know what the story, that's lost to time, but
Yep.
copyright 1942, so it is wartime.
Yeah.
Now we have some smaller
Yeah.
bits of insignia and things
Yeah.
here.
I don't know if you could use any of those buttons. And
Sure.
I mean, there's a
So
ton
some
of
of these are a mix. So the infantry later on, after World War II, into the Korean War era, got these blue discs behind, as well as the blue cord that they wear, actually on this side. Some of these are Transportation Corps.
So it was kind of bittersweet to let go of these things. They've been in my family forever, and I remember seeing some of these things as a child and growing up with them. But these things are better off in a museum because they were just sitting in a box. They would have sat in a closet. They would have sat in a safe. Some things were in the safe, and they had Nazi memorabilia, things like that. And I thought, you know what? These things need to be in a museum and a reminder of our freedoms, the reminder of the greatest generation of these guys. They're not going to be around much longer. So I decided to keep these things out in the world so people can look at them, remember the greatest generation.